Welcome back, friends. Now, in this lesson, your students are going to be working on representing four-digit numbers. Now, the standard that we're working on is MA3 NSO1. Now, we know reading these benchmarks, MA is for math, 3 is the grade, NSO is number, sense, and operations. And that first one is the standard. We'll be working on the standard for several lessons, and it is understanding the place value of four-digit numbers. Now each lesson will drill it down to a specific benchmark. So the first one being the standard, the second one being the benchmark that we're working on in this lesson, which is read and write numbers from 0 to 10,000 using standard form, expanded form, and word form. So there are a couple of tools that are really important, not just for this lesson, but for all throughout the year. The first one is these base 10 blocks, and I'm sure you're familiar with these. In case you're new and you're not, we have the base 10 blocks, and hopefully you have a set of these. If you don't, I do have some links below, but hopefully your school has provided you sets of these. Often you'll have a set for that students can share. So first of all, when we're looking at base 10 blocks, we have the cube. Now they'll see pictures of cubes in workbooks and stuff, but like I said, it's important for them to put their hands on it as well. I like to also make sure that students understand, why does the cube represent 1,000? So important, so they can make the connection to one little unit cube and one little cube in this big cube. And we want students to see, they can see, like from last year, this looks like an array of 10 by 10, which is 100. And then there's 10 layers of those, so that's 1,000. So good to reinforce with student why this is 1,000. Okay, next we have the flats, and the flats represent 100. So they are flat. We call them a flat. And also talk with students. This is 100 of the little unit cubes all put together. We can see that array 10 by 10 here for the flats. Next, we have the rods. So with the rods, a rod represents 10. It's 10 of those little unit cubes. They could actually count them. And then finally, we have the unit cubes. The unit cubes, of course, represent 1. The next thing that will help them is having a place value chart where they can look at a number and write the different digits that correspond with the place values. Okay, so first of all, in today's lesson, they'll be looking at pictures of base 10 blocks. So hopefully you also have some sets of actual base 10 blocks, so that maybe students could even take the blocks and create this picture just so they can see it and touch it and put their hands on it. So that really helps me see the difference in 1,000, 100, and even then the difference in little tiny just 1. So that's one thing you could do, is let them use the base 10 blocks to draw these pictures, but then they'll fill in the place value chart. So obviously we have 3,000s, we have 300s, we have 4 10s, and 9 1s. Okay, now it is so important to practice with students where we have some place values that are 0. I remember when I taught high school math and the students hated getting a solution of 0. They would think they had it wrong. I used to have a little saying. I'd say 0 wants its time to be special too. So it's okay to have 0. A good reason to practice with this is because some students may tend to look at this and go, oh, I have 1,000, and then automatically put the next number here. So practice with having some zeros. Do I have any flats in my picture? No. So there are 0 hundreds, and then we have what? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 10s, and 4 1s. So make sure students practice with numbers that have zeros in some of the place values. Now we're going to get into our vocabulary for today. I would love to have vocabulary up, a vocabulary wall. Of course, standard form, expanded form, where they're writing out the value of each place value. Super important to stress with them. In expanded form, we have to add all those together to create this expression that is equivalent to 2,183. If we don't put the plus sign in there, then they, then it's got to have the plus so that it equals that same number. Word form, 2,183. Practice good technique with writing and saying words. avoid using the word and when reading a number and writing it in word form. It's not that it's wrong, but and will be really, really important when we get into decimals. So when we say and, then we know like 100 and 2/10. Then we know we're switching from the whole numbers to decimals. So practice reading with them that would read this 2,183. The comma after the thousand, then 183 is all written out. Okay, so also you want to make sure you, as they're working in the second part of the lesson, they're going to have problems here where they're going between these three forms. They may give it in expanded form and they have to write it in standard form or vice versa. So make sure you give students access to place value charts or base 10 blocks. We would consider those adaptive technology. It's a tool that students can use. I know, even though it's not technology, things can be considered adaptive technology if it's something that provides support to your students. So that could be a way to help some of your students with disabilities, to help them grasp this concept. So make sure that when they're working today, they do have place value charts available to them and base 10 blocks. So it's so like one of the questions you have is like, if I have a number 3,105, how can the place value chart help me write that word in expanded form? Well, it helps me put each one of the numbers in each one of the digits in their place. I said the answer to that. Your students might have a different answer. Great opportunity for discussion to have them discuss, how does the place value chart help us to write it in expanded form? So then we know that in expanded form, we would have 3,000s, which would be 3,000 plus 100. 100. Oops, we don't have any 10. Do I need to write plus 0? No, I don't need to write that. And then plus 5. So again, for some students, having that place value chart helps them make that connection to expanded form. Do they have to use it? No. If they understand from standard form that this is 3,000 plus 100 plus 5, they don't have to use the place value chart. We do want them know how to read a place value chart. But again, it is a tool if they need it, and we want to make those tools available. And then, of course, when we're writing in the word form, we would have 3,000, the comma after the 1,000, and then just 105. I have a really bad habit of reading it as 105. And like I said, not that there's anything wrong with it, but let's say using and for when we're going to be tacking on decimals. All right, so one last thing to think about is what are the mathematical thinking and reasoning standards that your students are going to engage in? Okay, and these are always, up for discussion, okay, because some people might say, oh, I see this standard, or I see this one. A few here that I noticed that definitely MTR 2.1, demonstrate understanding by representing problems in multiple ways. That's what we've just done. We've seen how we can use a place value chart, base 10 blocks, or we can use those different forms. MK12, MTR 4.1, engage in discussions that reflect the mathematical thinking of self and others. Some questions you might have, like how can base 10 blocks and place value chart help you with writing 4-digit numbers and expanded in word form? What's your favorite tool? Why? How do the vocabulary words give you hints about how to write the number? I mean, when I'm thinking about expanded, I get students thinking about this. Oh, well, we're expanding it when I'm thinking about word form. So that's a fun question to ask. And then finally, the MTR 5.1, use patterns and structure to help understand and connect mathematical concepts. One of the things students are doing here is creating plans and procedures to logically order events, steps, or ideas to solve problems. They're doing that when they think about using base 10 blocks or place value charts to write 4-digit numbers. They're thinking about that. That's what they're doing if they're using those to help them be successful with this. So really it's so important to just build this deep conceptual understanding of place value. It's going to be so important as we move into addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Going to follow us from here on out. Now, there are some other resources if you want to give to your parents. I have a parent video where they give an overview of what their students did. We have student videos. Maybe they're absent. Maybe they just need a second look at it. So those are available in the for parents and for students section as well. All right. Thanks for joining. See you in another one.